All right, so thank you guys for joining us here. We are staffed with another wonderful small panel of great minds, starting with Trish, Dan, and Christine, and then Wei is in and out, but he will be joining us. But today, really what we're going to be talking about is the business model canvas. That's been the topic of discussion in several of the episodes that we've had. But now I guess it's the up front and center and in main focus here. There's Wei.
Right, it actually works.
Ah, there you are. Now I see you.
Anyway, so what I was
Ooh.
now we have a net. So
Yay.
I think we're
Hi.
pretty full staffed here.
Are
Anyway,
you
so like I said, we were going to talk about the right side of the business model canvas today. Since the business model canvas can take an entire 2-day workshop, as we've seen with Reality Check Your Startup, I think it's now one of the main topics used in when clients come in and ask questions. Where do we revert to? We take them to the business model canvas. So now, if we look more at the right side with the value proposition, customer relationships, channels, revenue streams, and customer segments. So we'll be looking at this half of the business model canvas, and I guess we'll jump right in. So something that stood out to me, more specifically, when I looked at the business model canvas from an outside perspective, I saw that there were a lot of boxes and a lot of different sizes of boxes. So can anyone, I guess, enlighten me? Why aren't all the boxes the same size?
Oh, stumped us.
I don't suppose I've seen that explained anywhere, but I think if I remember correctly, I'm not looking at the business model canvas right now, the value proposition is probably the biggest box. It's right in the middle. And in my opinion, it's the biggest because it's the most important, but I think we could incite a debate about which box is the most important.
Yeah, I'm not sure that the size is a corollary to importance necessarily.
I lost you guys. So if you guys want to repeat that one more time, I lost you here.
I was just agreeing that I'm not sure that the size of the box is a corollary to the importance.
It doesn't have to be necessarily.
It's just by design.
Well, I think there's a lot of information to put in value proposition as well. Maybe there's the most information to put there. I think it's important, but I also think maybe it requires more explanation, actual number of words that belong in that box.
Oh, you're saying it's just a design idea then?
No idea. Somebody want to ask, Steve Blank or Alex Osterwalder?
Yeah.
Right.
I just didn't know because from an outside perspective, it may seem like that value proposition holds more importance based on the size of the box. So I don't know if I was just trying to clarify that the fact that they may just be equal in size for no apparent reason. I didn't know if you guys knew anything or had additional input, but I thought that was an opening question that some other people may have had. So
way to go, Grant! You stumped us on question 1.
Right.
I didn't mean to.
We'll forgive you.
I guess we'll transition into why is the business model canvas important then?
I missed the question. Can you say that again?
Yeah, it was why is the business model canvas important?
I think it takes a lot of really complex and discrete items and information and puts it into one place where you can see it all, and it organizes it so that it becomes much more useful.
It builds a whole lot of hypothesis in a structured format that you can then start questioning and testing. But it's structured. It's it's an overall look at the whole business, and it's not just a product. It's even bigger than the company because it's a business model. You could theoretically build 3 or 4 companies using the same model, just different variations on it. So it's an incredible tool to work with clients with. It's so enlightening.
Yeah, I like it because it helps clients think through their business in a very structured way, not necessarily in a step-by-step, like as in you're putting together your business plan, here's the executive summary, here's your marketing strategy, here's this, but really in a way that shows how each of the components relate to one another. And for new entrepreneurs, I think that can be very valuable. But even for existing, or serial entrepreneurs, it just helps them think about their business components and how they relate to one another to build out the business.
I think the relatedness is a really important feature of the business model canvas. Every box connects to another one for a reason. So you start with your customers, and then you go to your channels, and you have to actually do a thorough job describing one of them so that you know how it flows into the distribution channels, and that translates into the value proposition to the customer, that translates into the resources that you're going to need to make it all happen. So I like the layout of it. I like the single page aspect of it, and I like the idea that all of those features are interconnected.
Yeah, and I think that the one page makes it a lot less intimidating. In fact, one of the
Yeah.
exercises we do is we map it out on a huge whiteboard, and then we can talk through each of the pieces, and it becomes a very valuable tool.
I've done it a couple of times with sticky notes. So you can actually stick the note on it and then go, well, maybe it doesn't go in that box. Maybe it goes in this box over here. It becomes very fluid,
Yeah.
and you don't have to finish one box before you go to the next box. You can start in this box. You can jump over to that box. You can come back to the box that you started in. I like the fact that it's so fluid, so it's very brain freeing as a word.
And I want to throw out another characteristic of the business model canvas that I think is really valuable, and that is that it's an iterative process.
Yes.
So we can encourage our clients to basically throw down all of their assumptions and beliefs about what it is they're trying to do, and work through those and go into depth on those and challenge them and so on in an iterative fashion that gets them to a place of substance.
You
And I
know,
like how there isn't order, and the order can change based on where you're at in the company or in your startup. So that almost leads me to the next part is if I'm a startup company, this business model canvas may look a little intimidating at first since there's so many boxes. I don't know where to start. Where do you guys think would be the best place to start?
Customers.
Customer segment.
why not value proposition?
Well, who do you write the value proposition for if you don't know who your customers are?
What if you work from the value proposition to your customers?
How do you know what's the value of them unless you know who they are, though? I just don't understand how. I don't understand how anything could come before customers.
I think most of my clients anyway start with the value proposition. They have the product or service, and it's for everybody, of course. And then we work towards who the actual customer segments are. It's rare when somebody comes in and has a solution to a problem, and that solution is for a specific customer segment, which is the way it should be. Usually backwards, they have the product or the service and don't know who it's for.
So what you're saying, Wei, is that people come in with a solution already, but they don't have the right customer segment, or they don't have a specific customer segment identified. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly.
So, but then again, how do you write a value proposition for a product for which you don't know the customer segment? That's the thing I don't understand. You may have a solution already, but how do you know what's of value about it unless you know who your customer is?
And maybe it's not a first. Maybe it's a concurrent process. Somebody throws out, here's what I'm doing, here's what I'm creating. We ask them, what's your customer? Who's your customer? What does your customer look like? How are they defined, and so on? And then saying, all right, if that is your customer, what else about your product solves their problems? Maybe it's not a first.
Well,
Maybe
maybe
it's a concurrent.
Maybe,
Yeah.
and this kind of comes back to your point about iteration, Trish. Maybe you take a stab at each of those things and then kind of go in a circular pattern, refining and refining until you narrow it down.
Yeah.
Maybe answering something, even if it's the wrong something, is a good place to start. Figure out which thing you can answer first and then just keep going through it until you narrow it down.
It's definitely a back and forth between the value proposition and the customer segment.
Yeah.
So would you
Sure.
say that those two go, I mean, 1 and 2, you would say that you start with customer segments and then go to value proposition. So from there, is there any particular order? Would you say that those two are the only ones that really have to be in order, and then it's pretty fluid throughout? What would you say?
I would agree with Trisha's assessment about iteration and just and I think we're all kind of saying the same thing: fluidity, iteration, flux, flexibility. All of that means that you could start at any point. As long as you get to everything, you're going to go through it in many passes. Dan and his sticky notes. You're not going to just write it in permanent marker the first time you do it. Maybe it doesn't matter where you start.
The other one that I've heard of, I've never done it, it might be interesting, is take multiple business model canvases for each customer segment, or each value proposition. So you could have iteration of versions, or versions of iterations. Scary thought, huh?
No, I think that's what people do when they pivot at all in any segment. They change a couple things and maybe hold on to the previous version just, so they learn.
Yeah, I think that's I think that's why it becomes such a powerful tool, because it's not even that it's just fluid, it's that you can easily create several different versions of your business model. You're creating several different business models, and rather than going through trial and error of building a business model and testing it in, the real world, you're kind of doing it on paper first and looking at all the different variations that if we deliver our customer, deliver through these channels, how does that change the business model from delivering via these channels? And it becomes a really easy way to test, like you said earlier, test your assumptions without having to learn the hard way and looking at all those different variations.
So I think we can agree that customer segments is the first starting block. So I guess when Dan does his sticky note, um, his board with the sticky notes on it, he typically starts with the customer segments, but he has them list as many as they can think of. But I've heard on the contrary that sometimes you want to refine your customer segments to maybe 1, 2, or 3 of them that you think are the most important. So at what point do you stop with the wide customer segments and bring it in?
In other words, when there are too many customers, too many customers?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Too many customers?
Yeah, we have a client that we did that with, where we found by going through the customer segment, he had anticipated all of these different markets, and because then we moved to the value proposition and started working through a couple of those and recognized the fact that he needs to focus a heck of a lot more in order to get the business off the ground, because the value prop was so different from for each of the different customer segments. So yeah, I think when you find in fact, I think when you find the best, your initial market, that's a good place to then, jump over and refine your value prop and then look at the other areas.
Have you held on to all those other customer lists and come back to them later, or are you pretty much dismissing them?
What was that question?
I mean, your customer had a bunch of, you had 5 or 6 different customer segments. Did you keep those, or did you pretty much
Yes.
dismiss them and just stick with one?
Oh, yeah. No, we did that particular one on a whiteboard, and we kept that because we felt that, that was work that was already done, and we didn't want to lose that. So, yeah, we kept it.
Interesting.
That could be additional markets. Or he could retest as he starts to build out customer relationships and channels and revenue streams. He might find that that's too limited and that he needs to make adjustments and go after a different market segment. So, yeah, I would keep it.
So I guess we can transition, because you had mentioned channels there, Christine. One of the boxes in that right side of the canvas is channels. Can any of you guys, I guess, enlighten me on what the difference is between channels? I know in business school they talk a lot about distribution channels, but what channels are we talking about here in the business model canvas?
You're breaking up. Can you say the question again?
Yeah, sorry about that. So in business school, they teach us a lot about distribution channels. What channels are represented here on the business model canvas?
I'm still not getting any sound.
No.
I heard the question, but I'm having a hard time understanding what
This
was
is
your
what I struggle
diagram
with. What
channels
are
represented?
channels? What are channels on the business model canvas?
Oh, okay.
I mean, is it just ways to get product to the customer, or is it more than that?
So it might be more than that. I mean, that is one of the most basic definitions of channels. But it may be that you have other means of distribution. It generally means how does your customer acquire the product? But it could be through partners, it could be through direct sales, it could be means of having a relationship with a customer, subscription models. So
Yeah.
it's every avenue that a customer can use to get your product.
Well, and that speaks to another benefit of the business model canvas, and that is an opportunity to brainstorm all of the possibilities. Because typically, like Wei said, the customer comes to us with a solution with a product and says, "This is what I built. Now it's time to sell it." They can often come with a preconceived notion for how to deliver that to their customer, or not, or no idea at all. And so that, bringing up the channel from the business model canvas gives a really great opportunity to brainstorm all of the possibilities.
I'm gonna jump in, one of my next question, which is, what's the difference between channels and relationships? Aren't they really the same thing?
I would say no. I would say that the channel can impact the type of relationship that you can have with your customers. So, for instance, if you have if your product or service via online, that obviously in any business a customer relationship is pretty important. So how you build that relationship with your customers is going to depend on the channels that you use too. So if you have a retail space, how you build your relationship with your customer is definitely going to be impacted by the fact that you have a face-to-face relationship. So I don't think they're the same thing, but I do believe they impact one another significantly.
Okay. No,
that doesn't answer your question.
Well, no, it sort of does, because I guess that's how I treat it too. But it's always interesting to listen to how somebody else talks about it. I guess. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Dan.
I see it. I mean, I tend to teach it as a circle. But you take the value proposition, you use the channels to move it to your customers, and then from there the circle comes back counterclockwise. It goes through the relationships. The customer then interacts with you in a way that helps you modify the business proposition, et cetera. And it's sort of a continual circle.
Well,
So I mean, I was curious if people have different viewpoints.
Wouldn't the relationships also be, sort of the frequency of interaction? So is it ongoing? Is it one time? Is it subscription? Is it, a recurring kind of follow-up? Isn't that part of the relationship box that isn't necessarily part of the channel.
Yeah, I mean, Christine's comment about the retail. Yeah, you're going to treat a retail customer a whole lot different than an online customer or a subscription customer. Sometimes the product is being delivered differently, but probably your relationship's building different at the same time.
But I also think, Dan, you made up a really good point. I love that you're thinking of it as a circle through each of those, because the kind of relationship you want to have with a customer can help you figure out the type of channel that is best for you to use too. So if you want to build really strong, deep relationships with your customers, then you may not want an online product. You may want something that's more high end that they buy, face to face.
Yeah. Yeah, interesting. The other one I think is that even if it's a high-end sort of one-time product, like a house or a car, I think if you can build a relationship, you'll probably find other things to sell to them, or you build it so that even if it's 7 years later and say on a house, you're still getting that, you're keeping that customer, and they're going to come back to you to buy it from you again. So it's almost like the value proposition changes because of the relationship.
Right. You're right. Like real estate agents do that, where you buy your house as a one-time thing. However, you continue to connect with them by, an example would be offering our newsletter each month on things to do in that area or housing value, etc. Yeah. So an ongoing relationship, even though they're not buying, to stay top of mind.
They may not be buying, but they're certainly going to give referrals.
Exactly.
That's one of the reasons why they perpetuate those relationships.
Right, exactly, yeah. Well, and then that becomes the way you build your relationship is impacted by the fact that referrals becomes one of your biggest channels.
Yep.
True.
Yeah.
So what happens if I don't know how to fill out a certain box on the business model canvas? What do I do? Where do I go?
You're going to go to Chandler Innovations, you're going to go to MCE, or you're going to go to NASET Flagstaff. You're going to go find help to do it. Do not try this at home alone.
That's funny. I actually do the opposite, Trish. I send them the YouTube video and the PDF and say, try this on your own. And then come with, because the fact of them going through the process on their own, they have lots of questions, and we have a really good place to start.
I don't have a problem with people trying it on their own. As a matter of fact, I think trying it on your own is fine, but don't count on it as fact on your own.
Right.
Run it by somebody who's going to ask you questions, not your best friend who's going to tell you you're brilliant.
Right. See, I'm the other way. I'm on Trish's side. I want them to come in, and I tell them bring some people with you. Bring your team. Bring the people that you've been talking to about this, because I want to see the ideas sort of build in a brainstorming kind of session. Yeah. And I'm not sure you get that at home by yourself.
No, and I actually love what Hart did during our workshop, where he taped it out on the ground. That really did something powerful when you had to stand inside that box and think about it from that perspective. So that was, yeah. Can we get chalk and do it out front?
I was thinking about taping it on our floor here. I just want to figure out a way to get the words down there,
Right. No, I love that idea.
Yeah, it's great.
So I am out of questions. Would anyone else like to contribute, or we could wrap it up early? Any final comments? Anything regarding the business model canvas?
Yeah, I have a question. So how does revenue streams fit into all of that?
I think that belongs on the customer side for sure. Revenue streams they go along with channels. And they go along with the value proposition, because it is, you may have the same product that has a different value proposition and opens up the door to a different revenue stream. Maybe it's even a different customer segment.
Yeah.
But that side of the canvas is customer focused, and then the other side of the canvas is really business focused.
It's sort of fun to use it. I had a client who thought he had one revenue stream, and by the time we finished talking about it, he came up with 7 more. I'm not sure he could have, he will actually use all of those, but it definitely got him thinking about other ways to make money. It just sort of really changed his whole business model.
Well, the other thing too is that for clients who come in with a product or a solution, it really helps them think about it from a business perspective. So when they say, well, this is what it's going to mean for this customer segment, this is the kind of relationship I'll have with them, in the end, it comes down to, are they going to pay you for it? And how are they going to pay you for it? And what does that look like? And so it's another good opportunity to challenge their assumptions and how they're looking at things. It's a great tool.
Well, and things we focus on revenue in it too. I mean, it's not just, it's obviously not the focus area, but it is the foundation. I think the visual, like the actual spatial orientation of the revenue box is important. It is fundamental to building a business and a product. If you don't make money, you're not in business.
Right. Yep.
And I think that's one of the interesting things about it. Yeah, one of the interesting things about the design of the canvas is the idea that that revenue box is across the whole bottom of the customer side. And if you think about it, there's probably revenue coming down in a couple of areas. You've got revenue coming, yes, from the client, but there probably also, you should think about revenue, what revenue is there to be generated through the channel. Because if you think about some of those, like think about Airbnb, they're picking up revenue almost on both sides, because their revenue is coming not just from the customer, but also the relationship with Airbnb from the houses, the homeowners that they are, who are their clients also. So it's like it's definitely a dual stream. That's why to me it fits so well on the bottom of that part of the canvas.
Awesome. Well, any other additional final comments? I'll open it up to you guys. Anything left?
I think if anybody who's watching hasn't seen a business canvas and they want a copy of it, I would say email any of us, and we'd be happy to send you a copy to look at or invite you to come in and talk to us about it. Our emails are all on all of our websites, and it'd be fun to share the canvas with anybody who's watching. How's that for commercial?
Good job.
Well, thank you guys for all your input. I know a lot of people had questions on this. Hopefully it answers some of those questions, and part 2 will be on the other half. So I guess you can transfer your mind over to the business side instead of the customer side, or you can use them both, but that's what we'll be focusing on next time. So thank you for watching, and we'll see you next Wednesday.